Three, two, one.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Joe Bob.
That is actually her name, Joe Bob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Joe Bob. Today it is January 23rd, Tuesday, the year of our Lord 2023. A lot of stuff to get to, including the SCOTUS decision on the Biden versus Texas razor wire thing, because there's a lot of stuff going on in Texas right now, the border, but this specifically is the razor wire thing, not the buoys, not the controlled access into Shelby Park, which again might be too in the weeds, but that's coming up. Also, the DOD, people in the Department of Defense, are apparently fed up with Joe Biden with what's going on overseas. Now, we mostly look at domestic stuff here, but we're going to take a look at the stuff going on abroad. I don't know if you know this by any chance, but the United States has been attacked a number of times. It might even be hundreds of times as of this point, and the Biden administration has done nothing yet. Also, a bill in Oklahoma could get animal control involved in school-related furry incidents. And also, if we get to it and we have time for it, there's a Chinese lab in California that has been doling out some sicknesses to the American people. Wow, who could have seen that coming? Dear China, and if we don't get to this today, I guess I'll make this comment tomorrow. If China is not sending operatives into the country through the southern border, they're doing something drastically wrong. I don't want that to happen, but it is what I would do if I were them. Which brings us to our first story here that we're getting to. SCOTUS ruled yesterday on the Biden administration's lawsuit against the state of Texas to remove the border wire, the razor wire that Texas put up in its border. The Supreme Court on Monday, this is from, I believe, NBC News, allowed the Border Patrol agents to cut through and move razor wire Texas had installed on the U.S.-Mexico border as a part of their efforts to, part of the state's efforts to prevent illegal border crossings. The court, on a 5-4, granted emergency requests filed by the Biden administration, which had argued that Texas was preventing agents from carrying out its duties. It kind of goes on to talk about what happened, but a 6-3 conservative court granted the Biden administration the ability to cut the razor wire that Texas put up on the southern border because it is a federal issue. And this might anger some people, but that is the correct decision. Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett sided with the liberal justices on this, saying that yes, the border is the federal government's jurisdiction. Now, that is correct. But what an insane thing to do from a political standpoint, let alone what's good for the American people and what's not. Just from a political standpoint alone, Biden is getting killed on the border crisis. Just killed. I think he has 18% approval on the border crisis, which, just sidebar, you 18% of people that approve of Joe Biden's handling of the border, where is your bottom? Where is the line that can't be crossed to go, you know what, he's not doing a great job. I don't quite understand those numbers, but that is legit. 18% of Americans approve of Joe Biden's work on the border. That being said, if your goal is to become elected again, re-elected President of the United States, do you try and change the policy? that only has an 18% approval rating? Or do you lean into it even more and basically say, no, all of you are wrong, this is how we should do it? That's what's happening at the border in Texas. Like I said, and maybe you don't like this opinion, but I happen to believe it, the Supreme Court is right on this point. It is the federal government's jurisdiction. But in the same way that, we'll take this for example. If you had a kid, and your kid was like, say your kid's 10 years old, you have a 10-year-old kid, and the kid is saying, Mommy, I would like to eat broccoli and vegetables and salad and lean meats and things that are good for you. The kid is great, awesome, good job, kid. And then imagine the parent says, no, you will eat cookies and candy and terrible things for you, and you will like it. Okay, technically speaking, yes, the parent has jurisdiction over the kid. They are, I guess, in their rights to make the kid do, well, it's probably not my book. If you factor in child abuse, it's not exactly the best example, but bear with me. The parents technically have jurisdiction over the kid, and they can make the kid eat what is not good for them, despite the kid wanting to eat all of the things that are good for them. And so, yes, it is the federal government's jurisdiction to secure the border, but why then would you not just do it and instead sue the states that are trying to do your job for them? If your kid wants healthy food, good. They're supposed to do that. Don't force a terrible idea of a cookies and brownies and candy diet upon them. It's ridiculous. This is such a weird thing to do, especially from, I don't know, I look at everything through the lens of politics as a sport, and if you're trying to win the sport of running for president in the 2024 cycle, what are you doing? Suing the state that's the only state that is doing anything to help your biggest problem. The Biden administration says that the wire prevents agents from reaching illegal immigrants, I say illegal immigrants, this story says migrants, who have already crossed over the border into the U.S. The Texas Governor Abbott, they mention a Republican, installed the razor wire near the Rio Grande in Eagle Pass as a part of an operation to address the illegal immigration that has brought the state. Why do they say illegal immigration there, but then use migrants up at the top? I don't understand that. That has brought the state into conflict with the Biden administration. Texas sued after the Border Patrol agents cut through some of the razor wire, claiming the agents had trespassed and damaged state property. I don't dislike what Texas is doing. But when you get all the way through the courts, the Constitution is pretty clear. National security, the border specifically, is a federal government issue. This is the same thing that happened in 2012, when Arizona was doing effectively the same thing, and the Obama administration sued them. There's really no difference other than the awareness of the American people. Why? If look at the border situation as Joe Biden punching himself in the face. If he's consistently punching himself in the face with an 18% approval rating, and Texas decides, no, we're going to hold his arm back so he can't punch himself in the face anymore, and then he sues them for not letting him punch himself in the face, that's exactly what this is. It doesn't make any sense to me, but we're going to continue to have this debate so long as the Biden administration refuses to even really acknowledge anything bad going on at the border. If they were to take a John Fetterman stance on this, they would be moving in the right direction. Now, if you don't know about all of the other things Texas is doing, they're also barring Border Patrol agents from entering a place called Shelby Park, saying that they have control over this now, and also have buoys set up. Those two things have not yet been decided. The Supreme Court decision is specifically for the razor wire. Again, I believe it is the correct decision, but it is insane that you have to make said decision considering, again, notwithstanding the negative effect on the American people, but just the political disaster this has been for the Biden administration. What a weird, weird thing to do. Let's see. Moving on to this, because I think this is... we are in such an odd time. And I hate to say that as if it's some shock, but the twists and turns that policy and coverage of policy and debate and defense of ideas is taking should worry us all, honestly. Should concern every single person. Dog catchers and furries. Yes, this is a real thing that we're going to talk about. Now, just some context here. There's an Oklahoma state representative that has put forth a bill that would get animal control involved in a situation at a school in which a kid is acting like an animal. It goes without saying that, one, this is a ridiculous situation to be in, and two, this bill, this legislation is probably more about publicity and pointing out the idiocy of a policy of a school by way of mocking it into oblivion than it is actual hard legislation. We know that. I know that. You know that. The guy who wrote the bill knows that. But you know who doesn't know that? The Rolling Stone. I came across this article in the Rolling Stone that the whole thing is hysterical because, one, it's hilarious, the legislation that is getting put forth in the Oklahoma State House. I'll start reading in the article, and you'll notice a little way through, just see if you can catch the tone of it, that Rolling Stone is taking the side of seriously defending their position against this bill, rather than going, all right, you guys are being satirical here in passing this bill for attention or putting forth this bill for attention, and instead seriously argues against what I think is probably a joke. The article says this: if one Oklahoma representative gets his way, children who act like dogs and cats during school hours could be punished by ... animal control. Yes, parents might soon have to collect their erstwhile kids from the pound, which is freaking hilarious. If Representative Justin Humphrey's bill makes it to the finish line as it stands today, that is, of course, if kids acting like animals in school was really a widespread problem, which is up for debate. Humphrey's bill seeks to put place a law whereby students who purport, this is a quote here, students who purport to be an imaginary animal or animal species, or who engage in anthropomorphic behavior, commonly known as furries, at schools should not be allowed to participate in school. Remember that video that we played a while ago about the mom who was complaining that her school wasn't adhering to her son being a cat? Which ended up being satire, but still funny. The parent or guardian of the student in violation of this section shall pick up the student from school, or animal control services shall be contacted to remove the student. And then, okay, so we can all understand where this is coming from, pointing out idiocy with hilarity. Great, I love it. But then Rolling Stone takes it seriously and goes and interviews the guy. Humphrey tells Rolling Stone that he was inspired to write the bill after hearing several reports of students disrupting school while engaging in animal-like behavior. He cites two such alleged incidents in which a grandchild of a friend took to crawling down the hallway while wearing a leash, and another where a student distracted classmates by meowing like a cat. He seemed to be most concerned, however, with the idea of students requesting litter boxes in the classroom, a favored talking point among right-wing politicians that has been debunked. In case you've missed it here, the Rolling Stone, who again went out of their way to interview a state rep in Oklahoma who put forth a joke bill outlining the idiocy of a joke of a society that we have become, is now taken, well, none of this is actually happening, so none of this is necessary. Which is the wrong stance to take on this. The stance that they should have taken is just not covered it, because now we wouldn't be making fun of them covering a story that we knew was a joke and is ridiculous to begin with if they just didn't cover it. When asked why, Rolling Stone continues, he decided to use the term furry in his bill. Humphrey brought up mental health once more, saying that there is an actual psychological term that goes with this, but it's very difficult to pronounce, which clearly this guy's making a joke of his own legislation. So he just uses furries, and that's what everybody's calling them. He also implies, they go on in serious tones, that dressing up as an animal is some sort of fetish of sorts. We're there to educate, not teach kids sexual habits, which is a serious thing that, again, you can continue to say, if you want, that it's not happening. But then what do you do with all of the videos of teachers and of students that every single one of us see because we play them on this show all the time? Again, the Rolling Stone taking the stance of, well, it's not happening. And then they go on seriously later on. This is a big article too. They go on seriously later on to say, but that's all supposing children dressing up as animals is a persistent problem. In actuality, some schools have called it an ugly rumor. Yeah, I'm sure some schools, you're able to find some schools that are like, yeah, this is just a rumor, it's not actually happening. Which hasn't stopped other institutions from attempting to ban furries and animal-esque clothing. The very last paragraph says this: as for the whole animal control thing, the representative admits that it's a bit of a joke. Oh, you don't say! Which I'm glad they included with at least some journalistic integrity, but you shouldn't have wrote the dang piece if you understood where this bill is coming from. If a dog showed up at your school, you call animal control, and if you want to treat people as actual animals, you call animal control. I'd be happy to rewrite the language and replace animal control with mental health professionals, but as of right now, I put that in there to make a point, a sarcastic point. It's clear and evident that this joke is funny. It's very Babylon Bee-esque, as in there's some serious truth to this. But at the end of the day, it's satire. It's sarcastic. Yet the Rolling Stone decided to write a dozen-paragraphed article on why it's a bad idea. Okay. I don't know what to do with you people. Not you people. The people that can't figure out why people are up in arms or mad at the current situation that their kids are having to deal with in government schools. Bizarre. Moving on to a somewhat more serious topic, which I don't want to do, but it might be necessary because things are heating up around the world. We are in the spicy times. According to, well, this gets kind of wonky when it comes to according to. There's a Twitter account called Open Source Intelligence Manager, which is, I don't want to explain how open source works, because one, I won't explain it accurately, and two, we'll be here forever. But know this. Think of it kind of as an aggregate of different pieces of input and then spitting out a coherent thought based on that input. But that Twitter account has like 1 million followers. There's a Discord server. Bottom line is, I think this is legit. And it also was retweeted and echoed by a military guy, Mike Lyons, who I respect a lot, military analyst, So I'm going to read this, and this is interesting and fascinating. So just the context here, the United States has been attacked a bunch of times by Iranian proxies all over the world. I think the biggest, well, I don't even want to say the biggest. Basically, I think there was a bunker, I believe in Saudi Arabia, where there was a bunch of U.S. servicemen, and an Iranian-backed proxy launched a missile into it and got stuck in the rafters of these barracks. It didn't go off, but if it had, we would be in a full-blown conflict with probably Iran. And to me, that says, hey, there needs to be some punching back. And of course, Joe Biden, being the weakling that he is in the White House, remember, Joe Biden was the only vote in the Situation Room with Obama that didn't want to go get bin Laden, famously tepid, famously doesn't want to make any hardline decisions, and when he does, tends to make the wrong one. But anyways, this open source intelligence manager says this: leadership with U.S. Central Command, as well as other defense officials, have reportedly been urging the White House to allow them to go gloves off in order to halt any further threats by the Houthi terrorist groups in western Yemen to commercial shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Now, again, a lot of stuff in there that we haven't really talked about, so I'm going to assume you kind of at least have a simplistic understanding of that part of the world. But the main point is coming up. Well, might have already said it. Anyways, according to U.S. officials, several operations have been presented to the U.S. President, Joe Biden, which he has continually denied. These include larger-scale air campaigns involving the Air Force over western Yemen to destroy the Houthi offensive capability. An amphibious operation against several ports include, I'm not going to try to pronounce that port's name, in western Yemen, and even limited strikes on targets within Iran to, quote-unquote, send a message about further aid and support to the Houthis. In other words, it is being reported that a bunch of DOD officials and Central Command, U.S. Central Command, are telling the president, hey, we keep getting hit constantly. Our military bases, our equipment, shipping vessels in this part of the world keep getting attacked. And the only thing that Joe Biden said is, don't. I should have pulled that clip and had it ready. But the deterrence that the Biden and Harris administration, let's make sure we give her a kicking too, method has not worked. What was that? I vaguely remember before Russia, actually after Russia invaded Ukraine, Kamala and Joe went on a tour of the media saying, well, sanctions aren't meant to deter Russia escalating the war. Okay, well, they didn't. And also, then why would you do them? Bottom line here is Joe Biden, famously tepid, only person in the room to say, nah, I don't think we should when going after Obama, has been given many options by the DOD and U.S. Central Command to punch the Iranian-backed proxies in the mouth, and has yet to do so. Mike Lyons, guy military analyst who I respect his opinion greatly, said this about that particular tweet. As I said yesterday on CNN, gloves off is a sustained air campaign for 30 days, which is a metric of success being restored with the metric success being restored normal commerce in the Red Sea. We stop when they stop firing at ships. Again, probably a little bit more of a harsh tone, so to speak. But apparently something that needs to be done in order to ensure that U.S. troops aren't in harm's way because of a lack of action. Again, I know we don't necessarily talk about that stuff a lot here, but you should be aware that it's going on, considering it could have some pretty big effects on, ultimately on the way we do life, but overall as a, I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought here. We don't want to get our soldiers killed. Bottom line, and the Biden administration refusing to, yeah, is probably a good word, refusing to take any initiative to ensure that that doesn't happen doesn't make a lot of us feel great. So there's that. And I'm going to save this China story for a little bit later because it's fascinating and I want to make sure I get all the nooks and crannies of it. I guess, spoiler, there was a Chinese lab in California and the dude got tried for it. And it didn't make any headlines. This is a story from like October and nobody touched it. But we'll get to that maybe tomorrow. If you haven't figured out, the show's not actually live. I recorded this last night. And the reason I tell you that is because what time is it? At this point, I looked at my watch as if I knew what time this would be streaming. But no, not yet. A couple hours, we'll be filming some really awesome content that I'm excited for you guys to see over in Phoenix. And yeah, we'll be back live tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. Same time, same place. Let's see. We will see you then. Anything new happens. Was there music playing under all of that? Dang it, I gotta remember to mute this stinking thing. But anyways, appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.